The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, and minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber. So I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing. They're easy to toss in my bag on the go. Plus, they're vegan, gluten free, and HSA, FSA eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with promo code podcast at gruns.co. That's code podcast at gruns.co.
Welcome back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network. You can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. Michael and I will reminisce about the time we spent together, pretty much an entire month in Vancouver. He's there for another big Wild game, but of course we have news to get to. We have Michael's interview with Bruce Boudreau and all the drama surrounding the Minnesota Wild. This is the Russo Souhan Show. This is our Wild and NHL show on TalkNorth.com. We've made it easier and easier now to go to the show. You can just click subscribe. You can subscribe either to the show or the network itself. You can also find all the shows at TalkNorth.com. And thank you to Brandon, our longtime producer. And also, please follow us on Twitter at TalkNorthPod. I'll tell you about our sponsors and all the other developments of their business here in a little bit. But let's get to the news. You had a long talk with Bruce Boudreau. Why don't you just run me through it, what he felt, what you think about the move, and the way it was handled?
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, the way it was handled, I mean, that's how people get fired. The one thing I wanted to say, and obviously it's a heartfelt story that I wrote. And, I do think that, that's the value of working for The Athletic. And it's taken me a long time since I came to The Athletic to kind of find my writer's voice. But one of the cool parts of the story, because length isn't an issue, is that you can really take people into the room. Where you can't do it in a newspaper, and you can use 4-letter words. So Bruce was willing to really take me into the room on how he got fired, and that's stuff that you normally can't put in the paper. So because of that, and because it's a heartfelt story and a touching and a funny story, just reading through the comments, which are really, really nice, but everybody seems to be trashing Billy Guerin and calling him classless and all this stuff. And look, the reality is that we knew all along at some point here, Bruce Boudreau was going to be fired. We've talked about it all year long, that he was going to lose his job at the end of the year. So it could not have been an easy existence from Bruce Boudreau's standpoint, but it was going to happen. And when if it happened now, or if it happened at the end of the year, I could promise you Bruce Boudreau's reaction was going to be the same. So that's the first thing I want to say, in terms of the way it was handled. In terms of the timing of it, absolutely shocked. Bruce was shocked. I was shocked. Everybody around the team was absolutely shocked, and only because we all had our radar up 7 different times this year that Bruce was going to lose his job, and it never happened. So you just kind of forget that it's even a possibility, especially this late in the game. You think, once you sort of survive those real tense moments throughout a season, 3-7, the lineup mistake in Pittsburgh, the blown lead against Florida, the loss against Boston right out of the bye, you just forget that it's even a possibility, especially when at that point you had points in 8 of 11. But it happened. The timing makes a little more sense to me now, just from the standpoint that I've heard through multiple sources that Billy Guerin really wanted to do it after the Boston game, which was right after the bye. And he just, for some reason, he decided he didn't want to pull the trigger. Next game was against Chicago. They won that game. Then on a second of back-to-back, they go to Dallas. They won that game. So you're not doing it then. Then they come home against Colorado, and really they played quite well in that game, but Dubnyk wasn't very good. And my guess is Billy didn't want to do it then and have people just blame Dubnyk. And then they come out and spank Vegas. So then they blow the game the other night, and he decides to make the move. That's his prerogative. Obviously, he's probably, I think one reason why a lot of people are confused is that he probably doesn't want to disparage Bruce publicly. And there's obviously reasons that he had in making this decision. There's obviously things that he saw with this team and the way it was being coached that prompted him to make this decision. Whether you want to agree with it or not, that's totally up to you. But clearly that's one reason why I think a lot of people are confused right now, is that Billy probably hasn't given a total sensible reason for why he made this move now, especially in light of the fact that he put a interim coach behind the bench that has never coached in the NHL.
Right. The Twins brass still hasn't given an actual reason for firing Paul Molitor. We just all knew that they eventually are going to hire their own person, and they did. And they never went back and explained it because they don't want to rip on Molitor on the way out. And Boudreau's very respected. Guerin's not, it's really Guerin's job to make the move he thinks he has to make and to not rip the guy on the way out the door. It doesn't mean he necessarily made the right move. Doesn't mean he's going to hire the right coach. But that's the way this works. They don't come in and give you a hug and give you a gold watch. These are always brief conversations where they say, that's it. And the coach, of course, is going to want to walk out of the room at that point.
Yeah, especially Bruce. And trust me, I didn't put half the stuff he actually said in there. That stuff I did decide to edit out. But he was obviously ticked off. And look, my guess is at some point Billy and him will have another conversation, and they'll hug out, maybe. I mean, who knows? But look, from my perspective, as I've said to you all along, I've always felt it was going to be a very sad day when Bruce Boudreau wasn't the coach of this team. He's just that great to deal with. He makes the job that fun. He's this affable cartoon character. So fans, I think, took to that, and that's another reason. He's willing to say anything, and that was what was so cool about my sit down with him. You just don't get that 2 days after a coach is fired. That level of openness and honesty and humor and touchingness, and that's what I tried to do with the story. My aim with that story was not to sit there and make fans turn on the Wild and turn on to Billy Guerin. It was to show the human side of firing. I think we a lot of times forget that just because these guys make millions of dollars behind the bench, it's still a crushing thing when you sink your entire world into trying to win a Stanley Cup, don't get it done, lose your job, and now you have to deal with all the emotions that come with that. And with Bruce, it's absolutely anger, it's absolutely sadness, it's absolutely dread and fret about whether or not he's going to get another job being 65 years old. But he usually does, and I think that with the amount of jobs that are available and the amount of jobs that will be available over the next year, even if it's into next season, I think somebody at some point is going to put him behind a bench again. Because the one thing about Bruce Boudreau's teams is they usually win. They usually, somebody tweeted the day he was fired. I can't remember who. It might come to me, but it was really really stated well is that Bruce Boudreau's team that he goes to usually wins immediately, and the team that he leaves usually loses immediately. And there's a chance we see that here.
Absolutely. We have more to talk about there. We have a lot of good Twitter questions. There's a lot going on in hockey around the league and, of course, at the Wild right now. I do want to thank Tin Shed for sponsoring and hosting our shows. Next two live shows at tinshedmn.com. That's Tin Shed in Savage, March 11th and 25th. March 11th, 25th, 7 p.m. Both shows. We usually start about 7 and end about 8. Sometimes we go long, and we have great people hanging out there. A huge crowd last show. Credit to Michael's reporting, of course. Thanks also to Twill in the Dining Galleria. They provide almost all of my clothing. Grey Duck Vodka, that's Chad Greenway's company. Fixologyrepair.com, and Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin. And you know what? Here's the thing. Everything you just said, Boudreau deserves the affection he receives. He's one of the best characters we've had come through the Twin Cities. And those are manager and coach positions. They're tough. You're in the public eye all the time. You get second guessed on everything you do. It's a hard position in which to maintain a sense of humor. And I really admire the people who can do so, whether it's Ron Gardenhire or Paul Molitor or Bruce Boudreau.
Yeah, no doubt. And he doesn't take himself too seriously. I mean, he does not, you see him around town. He's the nicest person ever. He is the old cliche of the guy you can sit next to at the end of the bar and just have that conversation with. I mean, I'll just give you an example. Somebody sent me a really nice email as I was taking an Uber here to the hotel in Vancouver saying, hey, I own a couple of homes in Banff. I would really love to give Bruce one to go visit his son Andy at some point, to just have him and go visit him, because he felt bad for my story that he couldn't go on the father-son trip to see Andy. And so I email I forward this email to Crystal, his wife, and Crystal writes me back and says, Bruce thinks that's really nice for the guy. Just give the guy his number. So here's a complete stranger that writes me this email. And Bruce Boudreau, the third winningest coach in the history of hockey, just goes, yeah, give him my number. Just I'm just like, all right, if he insists, it was just beautiful. Like, that's Bruce Boudreau, right? He's absolutely like, everybody has an ego, right? But he doesn't take himself as this like celebrity, hockey coach at all.
No, absolutely not. So I wish him the best. I'm sure he will get another job. Do you have any insights or intuition as to what Guerin might have seen that led him to make a move, or do you really think it was just him waiting for the right time?
No, I think it was stuff that he was seeing. I don't think he liked some of the lineup decisions, and I don't think that he liked the way the game was managed late in games. The games to Florida, the game against Chicago that they did wind up winning in overtime, but they blew a late lead. And the game against the Rangers were very similar in the way that the lines were deployed at the end. He essentially used six forwards. I've said it on this show before, as much as I like Luke Cunnin as a player in his own zone, he's a lot of times out to lunch on reads and things like that. And he was a common denominator in a lot of these goals against. And Mikko, as much as I give Bruce credit for putting Mikko on the fourth line and taking him off the power play, like, he's got one job now, and that's in big game situations to go take that big draw and not give up goals. And he's not doing that anymore. Like, he's still on the ice. He's on the ice for all these things. So I just think that, now I will say this, and I don't know if Billy Guerin would agree, but against the Rangers, I even tweeted it during the game. Like, I was all with, like, before Bruce did it. It was almost like I had a bat phone to Bruce. Like, there were so many players playing poorly that game that who could you put on the ice? The top line of Fiala, Stahl, and Parise were as bad as we've seen them. And admittedly, by the way, they say, there are guys on that line that say they've never played that badly as a line in their careers, okay? And that's not hyperbole. That's what they've said in that game. And then Zuccarello and Galchenyuk were absolutely terrible that game. Now, the one guy that I just don't like that he keeps on taking off in these situations are Donato. I just think that he's got the speed and can be a pest in his own zone, and certainly not worse than some of the other guys that he used in those positions. So I just think that when those three games were 3 games with blown leads, I think Billy really looked at the deployment late in games and didn't agree with Bruce's rationale. Then when he asked Bruce, I don't know if he agreed completely with Bruce's answers. So that would be the only thing. But as I've said all along, I do think the fact that this team was even close to a playoff spot 2 points after the Dallas game is a testament to Bruce's coaching. This team has had significant goaltending woes this year. Have as weak as most teams in this league that I've ever seen up the middle this year in terms of offensive production, especially from lines 2 to 4. And the fact that they were even at that point after a Dallas win 2 points out of a playoff spot, I think says a lot about the job that Bruce Boudreau did here, and I think he deserves credit for that.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you to Grey Duck Vodka. It's Grey, Gray, of course. Grey Duck Vodka, Minnesota's vodka.
When we asked you to get the duck out, wow, did you respond? Grey Duck Vodka is now in over 1,500 locations and expanding every day. This is Chad Greenway, and I just want to say thank you for making Grey Duck Minnesota's vodka. With the wonderful ingredients from Minnesota farmers, Grey Duck is gluten-free and has won 3 gold medals for taste. For all upcoming events and a list of locations carrying Grey Duck, head to greyduckspirits.com.
Please drink responsibly. Grey Duck Spirits, LLC, Lakeville, Minnesota.
Get the duck out.
Also, if you're a fan of outdoors content, we are adding more and more outdoor shows through our partnership with Ron Scherer Productions and The Flush, Minnesota Bound, all that. Find that at talknorth.com as well. And tell people about it. Spread the word as we expand the network. We appreciate everybody who has listened over the years. Let's I guess what's the next big issue? Do you want to talk about potential trades? You want to talk about
let's talk about trades. I mean, Pierre LeBrun and I has just reported, and I've been working on this for 3 days now, but the Wild are, I think Pierre wrote it in a speculative way, but I can confirm what he is writing. And that is the Wild have expressed interest in Vincent Trocheck, the Florida Panthers' number 2 center. I think the big thing that the Wild are trying to figure out is he a center? I mean, and isn't this just a common theme for a lot of Wild players over the years? I think it really just shows you how hard it is to play center in the NHL. But there's a lot of people that think that the reason why Vincent Trocheck hasn't been nearly as productive in the last year or so is the fact that maybe he's more of a winger than a center, and that they're trying to force feed him at that position in Florida. But I think the Wild are really scouting him and acquiring him on trying to be a center. He came back from a high ankle sprain, probably way too early. Has not been nearly as fast and explosive as he was when he was really productive early in his career with the Panthers. But he is somebody the Wild are really looking at. And to me, I mean, when I connect the dots, there's really only one guy that makes sense for the Florida Panthers if you're going to make a trade for Trocheck, and that is Jonas Brodin. They need a second pair left D to play with first pair left D to play with Aaron Ekblad. And to me, that would obviously be, if you're going to make this trade, I think that Brodin would be in it. And that's the one thing I could tell you is that I think that Billy Guerin has permission from Craig Leopold to do basically anything he wants going into the deadline, as long as it gets closer to the Wild getting a number 1 center or a number 1 goaltender. That would be the only thing that they could do. If you're trading, let's put it this way, if you're trading Brodin or Dumba, I should say. So you're not trading Brodin or Dumba for picks, prospects, things like that, unless it is going to be a current or future number 1 center or current or future number 1 goalie. That would be just my guess. I would say that's when you have assets like that, it better be to get those type of things.
Right. We have so many good Twitter questions. I want to get to them. From Fighting Wild. Does today's run on defensemen help or harm the Wild in relation to Brodin and Dumba? Price going up or price dropping?
Yeah, I don't think it harms anything. I mean, these are individual assets that Billy Guerin's going to establish the price on. And as I just said, this is not picks prospects unless the prospect is a future blue chipper. The goal here is to win. And the goal here, if you're going to trade a guy like that, is to get multiple pieces. And, again, Trocheck is a significant asset for the Florida Panthers. Brodin or Dumba are significant assets for Minnesota. So how you could craft a trade like that would be very, very interesting. But I do think that they're talking.
This is an on-point question from R.D. Jones. I've seen people outraged by the insinuation of the veterans being the ones to get Bruce fired. Are the inmates running the asylum, or is this overblown?
Yeah, this is Billy's decision. This has nothing to do with it. The only thing when I asked Bruce if and that's not why they were fired, but there's no doubt that the veterans have been rubbed the wrong way by their decreased ice time this year. That's the natural progression, though, of an organization, of a team. So this year, Bruce Boudreau is gave a ton of rope and responsibility and increased ice time to guys like Kevin Fiala, Yul Eriksson Ek, Luke Cunnin, Jordan Greenway. Carson Soucy, as we've seen. And when that happens, when you roll 4 lines, and the Wild have had a really quality 4th line for a lot of this season, and you have a 3rd line that's been as good as the Wild's been all year, that ice time comes out of the ice time for guys like Mikko Koivu, Zach Parise, Eric Stahl, Matt Zuccarello, and Ryan Suter even. And so obviously those guys are going to be ticked off, especially if you're not winning games. But that has nothing to do with why he was fired. That is just normal, natural stuff that happens inside of a locker room with just every team in the league, not just Minnesota. I do not think that Billy Guerin had an open door policy for any. Trust me, he was not fired because the players went to Billy and said, "I want him out of here." Trust me.
I do trust you, and I thought that would be the answer, but I wanted you to be able to give it. Hey, twillmn.com, Twill Edina on Instagram. Check out Twill in the Edina Galleria. It's where I buy all my clothes these days.
Jim usually doesn't like to shop for clothes. I don't like it when he shops for clothes either, because he used to buy stuff I'd want to throw out. That's why I'm so glad he's found Twill in the Edina Galleria. He likes shopping there because of the comfortable environment and the friendly staff. He finds clothes that actually fit him properly and are high-quality brands that will look great for years, whether he's golfing or working. Our favorites so far are Peter Millar, Johnny O, and Barber. We spend our money at Twill because we love the clothes and we love the no-pressure shopping. Drop by Twill in the Edina Galleria for the best shopping experience and best clothes you'll find in the Twin Cities.
From Ross Zumbach, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. All the trades going down today. Any further discussion on the Minnesota Wild front with all the mid-tier defensemen going for decent price feels like value with our depth even outside 24 and 25? Or is it best to wait until summer to make these moves?
Look, the Wild made their trade that got a first-round pick. Obviously they have other assets like Foligno and people like that. But in terms of like Dumba and Brodin are two special assets that Billy is going to have to maximize if he ever moves them. So to me, these trades today, a lot of them are for rental defensemen that the Wild don't have. The only one that's about to be traded today that has term left on his deal is Alec Martinez, and that's 1 year. So the Wild don't have rentals. The only rental they have is Alex Galchenyuk, and after watching him for 3 games, I don't know really who would want him.
Yeah. It was pretty apparent when they traded for him. They were just getting him so they could get rid of him at the end of the year. But I expected a little more than this.
It's mind-boggling to me that somebody can come in here with his career on the line and be this ghost-like. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, it's funny, Michael, because I've had people over years. Why do you guys talk to the players? Why do you? Sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes how much you get out of exchanges with players. And when we talked to Galchenyuk, I got the impression this guy was like just lost. That he had no idea. There was no urgency. There was no sense of where his career was at all.
Yeah, well, I asked him point blank if he thought this would be a tryout, and he seemed to be offended by the question. Like you just played 3 minutes the other night. Like you were a fourth liner playing 3 minutes. Now you're on the second line in the last year of your contract, about to become one of the youngest unrestricted free agents in NHL history. Like this is a chance to pump up your stock and get a job next year. You're going to wind up being in the KHL. And
yep.
and right now he's playing like he answered that question to me the other day.
No kidding. From Tony Schmidt, why doesn't the Wild send Rask down? At worst, he is claimed, and we're done with his $4 million cap and roster spot. At best, he goes to Iowa to work on his game.
Well, I mean, they got a bunch of veterans down there, and there's a veteran rule down there. But and it's like still, I mean, it's not like the Wild have centers down there that you can call up. So he's just the 13th forward. The other thing is if you're going to buy him out this summer, you don't want him getting hurt anywhere, let alone Iowa. So the best is to just sit him in the press box.
Another good question. You guys asked.
Remember also whoever asked that question, I think Tony Schmidt.
Yep.
The other thing is after the trade deadline, as long as you're cap compliant, you can have as many players here as you want. So his roster spot isn't going to prohibit. You can only have 4 call-ups, but his roster spot won't really inhibit another player from coming up. Right now he's the 13th forward.
Another great question. This one from Davis Bailey. First, do want to thank Fixology Repair, fixologyrepair.com, downtown Minneapolis in the Skyway, downtown St. Paul in the Skyway, Mall of America, 3rd floor by Nordstrom's.
Hi, this is John with Fixology Repair. For the better part of a decade, we've been privileged to serve you for all of your jewelry, watch, and smartphone repair needs at the Mall of America. Since Minnesotans largely hate going to the mall, we expanded 2 years ago to reach you in the Minneapolis Skyway. And now this year, we're pleased to announce we have a new location at Wells Fargo Place in the St. Paul Skyway. All 3 shops are equipped to help with your watch and cell phone repair needs on site, while all jewelry, computer, and game consoles will be completed at the Mall of America store. Please bring us your repair challenges, and don't forget to mention the Talk North podcast for a 10% discount on all of our services.
Davis Bailey, how do you see the line?
One thing also on that Tony question is that when I said veteran rule down there, I've written it 1,000 times and I still am never exactly positive on the number, but my point is that you can only play 6 veterans at a time. I think that's the number. And so the Wild have already too many veterans down there, so they have essentially a rotation of veterans that can't play. And so now you add another one, and you're just you're potentially stopping another player from getting in. So, this is just at least the decision as of now is to keep him up here. And remember, there's no waivers after the trade deadline too. So if he's on this roster after Monday, he'll be on this roster for the rest of the season.
Got it. From Davis Bailey, how do you see the lines changing with Evason in charge? Were you surprised at how happy he was with the, quote, energy before the game, unquote, in the post-game presser, considering how the game played out?
Yeah, especially because he always talks about accountability, and nothing changed that game. Zero. I've never covered, and I've covered a lot of them, in-season coaching changes where the next day, and not only the next day, at practice since, not one thing has changed. Not one line, nothing. They are tweaking the system a bit, but no personnel changes. Now we'll see, obviously, at the morning skate tomorrow here in Vancouver, if anything changes. But right now, I mean, I was surprised, and I was surprised. That was bizarro world. The whole post game locker room. I just cannot believe that a team. This is. There's 7 points out of a playoff spot going into tonight's action. This is why that loss the other night was so devastating. And you're walking through the room and everybody's like, yeah, this didn't set us back. I'm like, where am I right now? You just fired your coach yesterday. You're playing a team that's without Logan Couture, without Tomas Hertl, without Evander Kane, and without Erik Karlsson. You're playing a team that played 22 hours before. You came out like it was nothing, just running through the motions the first period. You had 39 shots on goal, but didn't get any rebounds or second chances. And we go through the locker room, and they're all excited that they tried hard. It was a shocking post-game press conference and post-game availability. And that the reason why I wrote that column, like, what the heck did we just witness here? Is because I knew what was going to happen by them not playing for 3 or 4 days, and it happened. Like every single game that the Wild needed to be a loss the last 3 days was a win for the other team. Like this was the worst 3 days here. Nashville's winning, Arizona's winning, Calgary's winning, and the Wild find out again a week ago in Dallas they were 2 points out of a playoff spot. Now they're 7, and that's huge at this time of year. So yeah. To answer that question, yes, I was very.
From Shane LeClaire, any centers you know of that interest you, including Mick Suzuki?
I mean, I like that Neckish kid down in Carolina. I like Suzuki. I mean, to me, if it's an NHL guy, I'd be all over Trocheck. I don't want to see Brodin get traded, but that to me, because you're not getting a true number 1 or 2 center in most circumstances here, but here suddenly is one that's potentially available. I don't think Florida wants to trade Trocheck, but they do need a defenseman. And there's a lot of pressure on the team to make the playoffs and actually advance down there. Quenneville is the coach and Bobrovsky and net and all that stuff. So Trocheck would be the one that's definitely the name that we're hearing a bunch of right now.
From Bowling Lane, which is the best prospect, Kovanov, Beckman, or Addison?
Well, I can tell you, oh my God, you just reminded me that my Hockey News Future Watch freelance piece that was due like 2 weeks ago, I haven't done yet.
Michael, get to work.
Let me find that Future Watch on there. We have just so you know, on the Future Watch, even though I do it, I go by their list. Now, the Wild's list has been severely refined in the last couple of weeks by the Hockey News, myself, and Brad Bombardier and Billy Guerin, because for some reason, somehow Sturm, I think because of his age, the Hockey News didn't include him at first. Now he's back in there, but then they traded for Addison. So we had to take guys off, and it's just been, I've never had problems with the list the way that I've had this one. But right now they have, the Wild have in their mind, it would be Kaprizov, Hovanoff, then I think it was Beckman, and who's the other person the person just asked?
Addison.
Oh, and Addison was 5. So who would have 4 been? I'll go and find that out real quick.
Okay.
Here, you have any Jeopardy music?
We actually, for you, we had to purchase entire catalogs of music just to get us through some of the slow spots in the show.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to play some. I think we're going to play some Grateful Dead and Pink Floyd.
Yeah, Boldy, who by the way is on fire suddenly after a slow start to his career. He's 3. Beckman's 4. Addison's 5. And then we have goes Sturm, Kakin, and Manel. First up, Johansson. And I'll tell you what, I mean, this team's got a ton of prospects suddenly. I don't know how grade A they are, but they have a lot of quality names in here that at some point I'll run that Brad Bombardier Q&A that I hope to run in that I wanted to run a couple weeks ago. Some news since that have kept me from getting that in.
Yeah, it's been crazy. From Bowling Lane, which is the best? Oh, I'm sorry, I just got that with Robert Duffy. Would Dave Haxtell ever be considered to be the head coach here?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of good potential college coaches. I don't know if Haxtell did a really impressive job, though, with the Philadelphia Flyers. So, to me, there's going to probably be a little pressure on Billy to try to hire an experienced coach. So, obviously, I think Gallant and Laviolette and Dougie Waite would probably be the 3 front runners. Although I could tell you, the more I look at Doug Waite, the more I do wonder if he's just somebody that Billy might hire as his right-hand man or in management or something like that. Bill Guerin and Doug Waite are best friends. And I just don't know. And I'm just guessing. I just don't know if Bill Guerin is going to want to have his best friend coaching the team because you're going to probably eventually have to fire your best friend.
Yep.
So, to me, even though I think he'll be a candidate, I think Doug Waite makes more sense to put in a front office type position if he comes here. This is just, again, speculation. I've written since August that I thought he would come here in some capacity. And then, you have a bunch of good college coaches out there. I mean, you have Mike Hastings, who Billy has a good relationship with down in Minnesota State. You got, obviously, Scott Sandlin, who the last couple of years has interviewed for some jobs in the NHL, even though he just signed an extension up at Duluth. You have Tony Granato, who there is history there between Billy Guerin and Tony Granato. And then, obviously, as the person just asked, Dave Haxtell as well.
Thanks to Tony Hoagland, Hoaglund, your State Farm agent, works out of Champlin, handles my insurance and Michael Russo's insurance.
Every team knows that the 2-point play can be a winning move. That's why State Farm agent Tony Hoagland and his team are here to help you go for 2 by combining your home and auto insurance. It's a great call that saves you time and money. So go for the win and score savings by combining your home and auto. It's just another way we're here to help life go right. Call State Farm agent Tony Hoagland at 763-421-4900 or online at champlininsurance.com.
From SC, anything new with what Dustin Bufflin's been up to?
No, I mean, just said Winnipeg at some point here in the next week, it would probably have to be, is looking to have a mutual termination of his contract, not similar to the one that the Wild did with Peter Sikora once upon a time. So then he would be technically be done with hockey or an unrestricted free agent. But Mike, just my sense from afar is that he's somebody that just would be content for the rest of his life to go fishing or something like that. I just don't know how much he loves hockey, and I know that immediately I can already sense it because I've gotten it. Is the second that he is cut loose by the Winnipeg Jets, it will be how about any chance the Wild to go after him? And I just don't know if you want to, if you're Billy Guerin, go after a defenseman that just essentially quit on his team. So I just don't know if that's somebody that you're going to want to put on your team, because then can you rely on him? Even though it's local, can you rely on the guy? So my guess is it's very unlikely that he would come here. I like Bufflin. He's a heck of a player. I'd love to see, him play again. He's a fun player to watch, even though he destroys the Wild physically at times. But it certainly seems very unlikely that he'll play.
From Brett Marshall, any word on if the Wild is still considering bringing Grigorenko over with Kaprizov?
The thing is that Grigorenko is not even playing center over there, so I don't know how much sense that would make. And only to me, it makes sense if he's a center. So, same agent, so that it could come as a tag team.
Interesting. From WH Bonnie 14, in an expansion hypothetical, I know you love these. What happens if a team has a dozen players with no trade clauses?
Well, no trade you could make available. No moves is what the issue is, and no team has a dozen no moves.
Russo slacks.
Just a lot of people are confused by this. No trade and no moves are two different things. The only people, like, there's a lot of players in the Wild or people in the NHL that have no moves, no trades, or partial no trades. But no moves also just means that you can't be put on waivers. You essentially can't be gone. And so those people on the Wild that would be affected by that would be Zuccarello, Suter, Spurgeon, and Parise. That would be it.
From Russo slacks, why doesn't a big shot like you just charter your own private flights?
I don't know, man. I can't even come up with something funny to say.
It's because who's going to recognize you on the plane if you're just flying by yourself?
True.
From SC. Here's another question about, basically, SC is asking, common denominator seems to be certain veterans on this team that keep running coaches out of town. I think we've already addressed that one. We'll let that go. From Chris Noble, I'm trying to find a different question here. Let me see. Once again, next live shows, tinshed.mn.com, Tinshed and Savage, March 11th, March 25th. Thank you to all of our sponsors and to Brandon. Do you have a final thought, or should I come up with one more good Twitter question?
No, come up with a Twitter question.
All right. Well, do the Wild have
father-son trip? We could talk about that.
Go ahead.
Well, father-son trip. So, I will say my radar is down right now. I just don't see Billy Guerin is going to be trading any players during these 4 days that the fathers are on the trip. So that's
right.
Just, maybe I'll look like a total idiot, but I'm just not expecting it. So that's why it's like, now that this Trocheck stuff is going to be out there and all these defensemen were traded today. I know that Wild fans are going to incessantly ask the next 4 days, what's going on with the Wild? What's going on with the Wild? My gut says that Billy Guerin's not going to make any moves until the team comes home Saturday, and then that means Saturday and Sunday. So that'd just be my total guess. At The Athletic, I got a bunch of cool stuff coming this week. I'm doing a roundtable tomorrow or Wednesday with the dads of, I believe it's going to be Foligno, Hartman, Hunt, Cunnin, and maybe Stalock. I'm trying to pick different dads than the ones that I did a couple years ago. I did a roundtable in Florida with Spurgeon's dad, Stahl's dad, Dubnik's dad, Prosser's dad, and did I say Spurgeon?
Nope.
Cullen's dad, I think. It was Stahl, okay. Cullen, Dubnik, Spurgeon, and Prosser. Yeah. So, and that was an absolute blast. So tomorrow should be really fun too. Then in Edmonton, I'm doing a podcast with a father and son, hoping it's going to be Eric and the Henry Stahl. And I'm also sitting down with Carson Soucy and his father. So bunch of stuff coming in The Athletic here in the next couple weeks. The Soucy story I'll probably hold a bit. And then I got a couple other stories, really neat stories in the works after the trade deadline as well.
You just answered Jake Hebrink's question about the father-son trip. Okay, we're going to wrap it up with this one from Tony Schmidt. How does one get unmuted from Russo's large band list on Twitter? Is there an application, Starbucks interview, Stogie donation Dropbox? What do you do?
Muted list?
Yeah.
Is Tony muted?
I think Tony thinks he's muted, whether he is or not.
I don't feel like he is, though. I feel like I've seen his Twitter for years on my.
Maybe he's asking for a friend.
Yeah, I mean, if he feels he's muted, I don't think he is. But a lot of times it's hard to reply. I mean, especially like after the Boudreaux thing the other day. I mean, I'm sure I got tons of questions and comments and things like that. But you're just working all day. So if Tony wants to send me an email with whatever his Twitter account is, but I mean, again, I'm pretty positive I've seen his name pop up on my screen, so I don't think he's muted.
There's so much news we didn't get to our reminiscences about our time in Vancouver. We can do that another time. We also didn't even get to the Miracle on Ice 40th anniversary, which I'm writing about for the Wednesday Star Tribune. But we will have time to catch up on those, and we'll have time to get more into those during our live shows, which last longer. For today, thank you to Michael Russo. Enjoy Vancouver. Thank you to Brandon Morton, our producer, and we will talk to you again soon.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used promise to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive